It's time for your daily LSU baseball update with Musso at the box. Now, Matt Musso.
And welcome into another edition of Musso at the box. LSU gets set to face Alabama in a 3-game series in SEC play, the final road trip of conference play. And this one is dripping, oozing with all types of postseason implications, both for LSU and for Alabama. We have spent all week talking about what this series means for both teams' resumes, LSU's in particular. If you're the Tigers, you're looking to win 4 out of your last 6 down the stretch here to get into postseason play without having to do work in Hoover. That would get LSU to 13 conference wins, and with their resume, their metrics, that should have them in along with the overall strength of the Southeastern Conference. But like I said, we've talked all week about that. Here today, we focus in on this series and how LSU can get themselves a series win. And it will not come easily against Alabama. They are a team that has been exceptional on their home field, which is interesting because from an atmosphere standpoint, Sewell Thomas Stadium, or as they like to call it, the Joe, is nothing special. It is hardly, if ever, packed. I mean, Texas A&M was there as the number 1 team in the country, and it was sparse crowds all weekend. It holds less than 6,000, but there is something to be said about the comfortability, the routine of playing at home, and Alabama has been very good. Losers of just 1 conference series at Sewell Thomas Stadium. That was against Texas A&M. They have beaten the likes of Arkansas. They've beaten the likes of Tennessee on their home field. So that part of it is certainly an interesting caveat. There's the Luke Holman storyline to analyze out of this. Him going back to face his former team while he has struggled on the road at LSU so far this season, and that will be in game number 2. So there are plenty of angles to explore in this ball game. In this series. We will go through all of them. So smash the like button if you have not already. Share if you have not already. Get subscribed up to the YouTube channel and get subscribed up on your favorite podcast app. All of that is greatly appreciated. And without further ado, let's dive right into it. We start, as always, with our series overview. LSU, the visiting team, comes in 32-19, 9-15 in Southeastern Conference play. The home-standing Tide come in ranked number 25 in the nation, 30-18 overall, 10-14 in SEC play, 1 game better than LSU. Alabama leads the all-time series with the Tigers. First played in 1906, the record 200, 180-3, although LSU has won 14 of the last 16 regular season series versus the Tide, including a 3-game sweep last year in Baton Rouge, part of a consecutive weekend sweeps for LSU as they had swept Ole Miss the week prior. But I digress. That concludes your series overview. Just a little bit of an overview here on Alabama. When you look at them offensively, and you'll hear this when we talk about them offensively, because we have some really interesting things to dive into with this lineup. They are one of the best. But if you're just listening to me talk about their offense, you would think that this Alabama team is one of the top teams in the nation. And again, offensively they are. But they have a sub-500 record in conference. They're 30 and 18. What's the drawback? Their record doesn't reflect how great their offense is. Well, their pitching shows up. And quite frankly, their pitching staff just isn't great. It's a lot of guys without overpowering stuff. Like, that is how I would describe Alabama staff. It's a lot of guys with nice stuff. They do not overpower you, and that's part of the reason they've gotten hit plenty in conference play and really kind of throughout the season. But the offense has been good enough to make up for that more often than not. There are a few guys on this Alabama staff with really good stuff, and we'll go through that. But that's kind of just my spiel on them as a whole. They are great offensively. They are not great on the mound, and that's something that LSU is going to have to take advantage of. All right, let's dive into our starting pitching matchups. As we do. When we took our first look at Alabama, we mentioned they had made a change in their rotation for the series against Mississippi State last week, and I was going to be curious to see if they kept it the same. They did. For LSU, you know how they're going to roll, Jump, Holman, and a TBA. Let's break the matchups down a little bit deeper. Sophomore lefty Gage Jump goes for LSU in game number 1 for Jump. This will be appearance 13 and start 12. He is 4-1 on the year with a 3.76 ERA, 55 innings, 16 walks, 67 strikeouts. The opponent hitting just 208 off of Gage Jump. The big thing for Jump the last 3 weeks in which he's been very, very good has been no walks. 2 straight outings in a row, no walks for Gage Jump. It wasn't magnified any greater than against Texas A&M last week where he gives up the 3 home runs, but because there's no one on base, and particularly for free, all 3 of them were solos, and he was able to keep LSU in the ball game. He was able to keep them in it, give them a fight, and you saw what happened. They got the timely hit, and the bullpen carried it the rest of the way. That's what you're looking for Gage Jump. He didn't get you incredibly deep into the game against A&M, but he got you into the 6th inning, and that was coming off of 2 outings when he got LSU through 7 innings. For Gage Jump, you want to see him just continue on the path that he's been going because he's been awesome for them the last 3 weeks. He has really grabbed a hold of that Friday night role, of that game 1 role, and the walks are a big reason why. I'll tell you this, the other thing that Jump has done, when he's really needed a quick inning, he's been able to reach back and find it and get the pitch count back in order because that happened against Texas A&M. He was at 44 pitches through 2 innings against Texas A&M, got you into the 6th. Same thing happened against Auburn. Auburn had the pitch count up high through 3. He gets you through 7. He finds that gear somewhere in there in the middle of his outing where he can kind of turn it around, get out of an inning quick, and it ultimately buys him more length. So that's been something he's been good at. That's going to be something that they need him to continue to be good at. But for Gage Jump, it really is just as simple as, man, keep executing. He's pitching his best right now at this point in the season. Keep doing what you're doing. Much easier said than done, I understand, but that's what you need from him, and it's going to be a tough test against a really good lineup that we will dive into here momentarily. For Alabama, on the mound for them, it will be senior left-hander Greg Ferrone. He's a transfer from Louisville, and this will be appearance number 14, start number 13. He is 4-2 with an ERA of 4.07. That goes up to just below 5 in conference play. 55 1/3 innings pitched. He has walked 18 and struck out 57. So there you go. And the opponent hits 246. 57 strikeouts in 55 1/3 innings. Not overpowering. It comes from the left side. The fastball will be in the low 90s, probably about 90 to 92. Not going to go much higher than that. You might actually even see a few of them in the high 80s. The thing for him is pitchability. His best pitch is his curveball. He'll throw it at any count, but he really needs to be ahead in order to do that. Second trip through the lineup has obviously given him problems. He's got a nice little off-speed pitch as well. But breaking ball is his best pitch, and if he has that, that's when he can really lock in. Not going to overpower you, though. It's a lot of contact and things of that nature from a guy like Greg Ferrone. When you move over to game number 2, Saturday, this is going to be a very interesting pitching matchup. So Luke Holman will be on the bump for LSU. Junior right-hander, of course, as we know, is Holman. And this will be appearance 13 as well as start 13. He is 6-3 with a 2.84 ERA, 66 2/3 innings pitched for Holman, 26 walks, 98 strikeouts. The opponent is hitting just 174 off of Luke Holman. Luke Holman on the road this year has not been the same as Luke Holman at home. It's just not debatable. It's not to say that he has not pitched well on the road. There have been times certainly where he has. It just has not been as dominant. And you could say, well, what do you expect? It's hard to pitch on the road. Totally fair. The problem is there's been one kind of black eye for him each time out, whether it was the 10 hits at State. I mean, we've talked about it. The 10 hits at State, the 5 walks at Arkansas, just everything that went wrong against Missouri. But he does have that sterling outing on the road at Tennessee. I'm going to be very interested in his emotions going back, pitching at Alabama against this former team. There aren't a lot of guys left from that squad last year that Holman was on. Alabama had to replace a lot of their lineup, and we'll talk about that when we get to that point here. But it's still, there's going to be emotion. Those guys know that he was supposed to be on the team with them and left amid the coaching change and the scandal. They're going to want to hit him hard, as well as he's going to want to pitch well. The thing I will say about Luke Holman, he's not a very emotional guy out there on the mound. And that's another reason I'm interested in this, because it's easy to say he never gets flustered. And that's fair. He hasn't gotten flustered. But this is going to be a much different situation. If Brad Bohannon isn't a dumbass, yes, I said that, and gambles and bets against his own team, not only is he a dumbass, he's a scumbag for that, by the way, too. If he doesn't do that, mind you, a team that went to super regionals and probably would have been in Omaha had they not had to go through Winston-Salem. Anyway, if he doesn't do that, if he's not that type of person, Luke Holman never transfers out. He's still there. So that's a place that's obviously near and dear to him. The emotions are going to be something that I want to see. Maybe it brings out the best in him, and you get an outing like you saw from him against Tennessee. If we're not talking, solely about just emotions and how he does on the road, there's one thing that is really creeped up for Holman here as of late that's been a problem, and it's been walks. Luke Holman has not been a problem for him throughout the year. And it normally isn't for a pitchability guy like him. But in Luke Holman's last 4 starts, you've seen 3 walks against Tennessee, and he pitched great that day. But 3 walks against Tennessee, he carried a no-hitter into the 6th. 3 walks in that one. 2 walks in Missouri, but there were also some hit by pitch, and 2 outs were just a big problem there. 3 walks against Auburn, 5 walks against Texas A&M. Now, the caveat with the 5 walks against A&M is 3 of them came in the first inning, and then he really settled in. Luke Holman needs to own the zone in this ballgame. He needs to own the zone in this ballgame. Alabama is an incredibly difficult team to strike out. We will get to it momentarily. They are an incredibly difficult team to strike out. They drive pitch counts up. They don't draw a lot of walks, but they have a great understanding of the strike zone. So Luke Holman has to be in that. Otherwise, this Alabama lineup can give you hell. You cannot put guys on for free here. When he stopped doing that against Texas A&M, you saw him throw up 4 zeros. The walk number has to come down for Luke Holman. It just has to. That's 13 walks in his last 4 starts. That is too many. So that will be one of the big things we're watching. We highlighted that heading into the weekend against A&M. Of course, he had the 5 walks, but 3 of them in the first inning. When he stopped, he hung the 4 zeros. Pitchability with a guy like him, it is just so massive. For Alabama, this is where they made the change in the rotation last week, and they've kept it the same. It's going to be freshman lefty Zane Adams. For Adams, this is going to be start number 12, appearance number 14. He opened the season as Alabama's midweek starter, but an injury to Hagan Banks forces him into the rotation. He's been really good so far as a freshman. 4-3, a 4.71 ERA, 49 2/3 innings, walked 18, struck out 35. The opponent hits 256 off of Zane Adams. This is a guy that pitched great against Arkansas. He pitched great against Ole Miss. He pitched very well against Texas A&M, and that's ultimately what moved him up in the rotation. He did not pitch great last week against Mississippi State, giving up 4 runs on 5 hits in 5 innings. The thing for him, again, you can see it in that stat line, it's not overpowering. But where he has an advantage is his curveball. Much like we were talking about with Greg Ferrone, Zane Adams' curveball has a lot of depth to it, man. It is a big one. Not your traditional lefty curve or lefty breaking ball even that, moves across the zone. It is a downward trajectory, a lot of depth. And when he is ahead in the count, it can be a real put-away pitch. The problem with him is getting ahead in the count. The fastball is nowhere close to overpowering. It's going to be 89 to 91. and it doesn't have a bunch of movement on it. But, like we said, he's had moments where he's pitched really, really well throughout the season and led Alabama to victory. It's because pitchability. When he's getting ahead in the count, he can throw that curveball, and he'll throw it in any count, but especially when he's ahead, he likes to go to it, and it is a very, very good pitch. So that's what you're looking at for Zane Adams. Against Arkansas, it's his best outing of the year. That was the number one team in the country at the time. I know what Arkansas's offense is. I get it. Number one team in the country at the time. As a true freshman, he went 8 shutout. So, I mean, it's there for him. He can definitely dig deep and find it. For LSU, it's going to be TBA. We obviously know that. It's going to depend on who they don't use. Obviously, as to who goes in a perfect world, that'll be Nate Ackenhausen. Well, I guess in a perfect world, that'd be Griffin Harry, and you get through the first 2 games, win them, and not have to use him, and then have him in a game 3. That would be the perfect world. But in the most likely world, it will be Nate Ackenhausen. But if they need Nate to win one of the first 2 games, they're going to go to him. We'll get a little bit deeper into that a little bit later on in the show, so stick around because there's a change to LSU's pitching staff in the emergence of Christian Little that has just made everything flow better, and I want to talk about that. For Alabama, it will be Ben Hess. Ben Hess is a junior right-hander. Ben Hess has been talked about plenty throughout his time in Tuscaloosa. This will be start 13, appearance 13, 3-4 with an ERA of 6.89, 48 and a third innings pitched, 29 walks, 79 strikeouts, the opponent hitting .231 off of Ben Hess. Ben Hess has the best stuff of any of these Alabama starting pitchers that we went through. The fastball can get up to the mid-90s. It's a good pitch mix with a nice slider as well from the right side, and he is a big righty. Like, this is your stock right-hander, and you can see that with the strikeout numbers, 79 in 48 innings. That's what you look for. That's not the 57 and 55 that we talked about earlier, right? This is one of the guys that can have, quote-unquote, overpowering stuff. The problem for him throughout his career, there's been injuries, and it's never really allowed him to reach his full expectations. There's been an injury this year. He left his start against Texas A&M with a leg injury. It wasn't serious, but it was too much for him to continue in that ball game. The thing with Ben Hess, inconsistency. Like, the stuff is good, and you will see that. And he will have good innings, but he has had some really bad ones. Like, the A&M game is a great example of this, wherein Hess that day went 3 up, 3 down through the top of that lineup. I mean, you're talking about Grahovac, you're talking about Laviolette, you're talking about Braden Montgomery. I mean, 3 up, 3 down, relative ease, looked incredible. Incredible. Then, however, you get to not even the second trip through the lineup, you get to the second inning, and ultimately he ended up getting hurt in that one. But in total for Alabama, it was an 8 spot given up. 5 of those 8 runs were charged to Ben Hess. After he goes 3 up, 3 down through the heart of that lineup, top of it, no problem, 5 spot. That's what kind of you're looking at with him. That's just how it's gone for Ben Hess so far this year. LSU's got to be able to take advantage of that offensively. They just do. And to have him going in game number 3, when that's been such a problem for LSU and it's been such a strength for Alabama, Ben Hess might be the equalizer there if LSU's lineup can take advantage of his struggles. So that's just something to kind of keep an eye on there. Hold on. This laptop, y'all, is giving me problems, and I'm about at my wit's end with it. Give me 1 second. I mean, let's move on to Alabama's offense, and we'll come back and talk about the rest of this pitching staff. Offensively, Alabama, just an overview. They hit .308 as a team. It's top 5 in the SEC. They average 7.7 runs per game overall, 5.7, so you can round that up to 6 in conference play. We mentioned earlier that Alabama is a difficult team to strike out. In fact, Alabama is the toughest team to strike out in the Southeastern Conference. Alabama has only struck out 332 times this season. As a team that is 20% of their at-bats, very good. Hardest team in the league to strike out. That is in the same vein as last year. The interesting part about it is, while they've struck out the least amount of times in the league, they've also walked the least amount of times in the league. They are putting the ball in play at an incredible rate. It's not always going to result in a hit. Pitching to contact can work against them. But what that also tells you is they can be great at manufacturing runs. When they need to move a runner, when they need a sac fly, this is the type of team that can do it because of their understanding of the strike zone. Not to mention foul balls, working counts. We mentioned a guy like Gage Jump, where pitch count's been a problem for him early in games. He's figured it out in the middle of his outing and been able to get deeper. That's going to be an incredibly interesting battle to watch with him facing this lineup, with their ability to work counts, foul off pitches, and not go down on strikes. Same thing we kind of mentioned with Holman. They have a great understanding of the strike zone, and he struggled with walks. How does that play out this weekend against this Alabama team? That is one of the more interesting things I found when looking into them, is the least amount of strikeouts in the league, but also the least amount of walks. It's a pesky team, and it's going to be a very, very interesting battle. Let's get into some individuals here. Cade Snell. Cade Snell is a junior college transfer in his first year in Alabama. He was inserted into the lineup every day the third week of SEC play, and boy, has it ever paid off. I want to focus in just on his conference stats. 377 in SEC play for Cade Snell. He's also a pitcher, two-way guy, but he's only pitched twice in the SEC, so you don't have to worry about that. Enters this LSU series on a 10-game hitting streak and a 14-game reached base streak. He's one of the chief offenders at being hard to strike out. How about this for Cade Snell? 13 strikeouts in 111 at-bats. Y'all, that is elite. When you look at his numbers overall on the season, you're not going to be blown away. I mean, they're not bad. He's hitting 342, but the thing is, the 377 in conference play. This is a guy you kind of lose sight of because he hadn't been in there every single day. But, man, what a player Cade Snell has been for Alabama down the stretch. Gage Miller. Gage Miller is really where I probably should have started. He's Alabama's leading hitter on the year, 383. He's the leading home run guy on the year with 18. He's the leading RBI guy on the year with 48. He is also a menace when he gets onto the base paths. He gets on, he jump starts Alabama's offense. Leads the team with 63 runs scored. At one point this year was leading the nation. For what it's worth, he is still third in the SEC in runs per game. He accounts for greater than 1 run per game, 1.37 runs per game for Gage Miller. You have got to keep that kid off the base paths. I was watching their series against Georgia earlier this year. They were playing a doubleheader. It was on the SEC Network. I was watching it. Every single time that kid got on base, it didn't matter if it was with 1 out, 2 outs. Did not matter. When he got on base, bam, everything came to life, and they somehow found a way to get him home. Gage Miller has got to be kept off base. And oh, by the way, he has struck out in just 11% of his at-bats on the entire year. He's been pretty awesome. Ian Petrus is another guy we're going to talk about. 330 overall, but he is Alabama's leading hitter in conference play at 380 in SEC play. 13 multi-hit games. That is more than half of his games in conference play have been multi-hit games. He is also top 5 in the conference on base at 473. And oh, by the way, he strikes out in just 12% of his at-bats. A name that should be familiar is Matt Cassetti. Matt Cassetti's a catcher at Alabama, senior veteran guy. He's the catcher that last year at the box took a foul ball off the throat and missed the rest of the series. That happened in game number 2. He had to be stretchered off the field. Like it was ugly. And he missed the rest of the weekend. Ultimately had to miss some time after that as well while he healed. He's back, and he's been very good. The thing about this Alabama lineup is its depth. I mean, I can go through and tell you there's 5 guys, hitting over 300 in overall and in conference play, all of that, and show you depth. Or I could tell you this. We just got through telling you about Gage Miller being the leading RBI guy overall for Alabama. You would think, okay, that probably means he's the leading RBI guy in the SEC. He is not. Matt Cassetti is the leader in runs batted in for Alabama in conference play. So that's 2 very dangerous bats right there. And then, look, this is just impressive, so I thought I'd throw this out there. He leads the SEC with 12 runners caught stealing. That does not matter in this because LSU doesn't run. So, whatever. But for him, 125 at-bats, 12 strikeouts. That's it on the entire season. It's absurd. One other guy, Will Hodo. Will Hodo, 10-game reached base streak, leads this team in walks. He's the one guy who's been drawing walks. It's because he's a big threat with the arm, with the bat, power-wise. 11 home runs on the year. Definitely a guy that you have to watch. I'm sorry, I said that was the last guy. There is one more. I'd be remiss if I did not mention their true freshman shortstop, Justin LeBron, because he's had an awesome year for a true freshman in this league. He's hitting 343 in conference play, 347. Like, he has been awesome over there at shortstop. 11 homers as a true freshman, 33 RBI, and he's fielding 946 as a freshman in the SEC. Alabama has themselves a great one over there at shortstop in Justin LeBron. So I had to go through and mention that. There you go. That's the Alabama offense. They're really good. They got a lot of power, 84 home runs. The strikeout number is just, it's incredible to me that you have guys striking out in 12% of their at-bats, or 12 Ks and over 120 at-bats. That is going to be huge. And for LSU, the put-away pitch is going to be massive this weekend. And that's been massive for LSU all year. That's been something we've highlighted a lot. And I don't necessarily mean the put-away pitch and striking them out, because the numbers are telling you you're not going to do that. But, man, when you have a chance at 2 strikes to put them away, put them away. I don't care if it's a ground ball to short, a fly ball to the warning track. It does not matter. Get them out, because they will hang around, and the longer they do, the deeper they can get into your bullpen. LSU's pitched very, very well. Very, very well since being ruled against Vanderbilt. It has been the reason they have been able to turn this around. We'll see if they can continue that going forward. A few notes on Alabama's pitching staff, then we'll give you our final keys, things of that nature, matchups to watch, and all of that, and a prediction. Mentioned it off the top, Alabama's pitching staff is a collection of guys without overpowering stuff. To illustrate that even more, Alabama as a staff this year has struck out 415 batters. That is 13th in the SEC. They're just not overpowering. It's a lot of guys with high 80s to low 90s fastballs. And if they fall behind in the count, that's very hitting. That's very hittable. That is hitter friendly in this league. There are a couple guys that we want to highlight. We'll start with their best reliever. Their best reliever is right-hander Braylon Myers. Braylon Myers has appeared in 16 games. He has an ERA of 2.83. But that ERA rises to over 5 in conference play. He is not overpowering. Fastball will be 88 to 91 in that range. But they use him plenty, and they'll use him kind of towards the back end of the ball game. He is one of 2 guys on this staff with multiple saves to show you that. The other guy that I really want to hone in on here is a name that should be familiar. It's Alton Davis. Alton Davis is the sophomore lefty. As a freshman last year, burst onto the scene, and he does have overpowering stuff. The fastball from the left side is a legit 95, 96. He'll run it up to 97, 98 if given the opportunity, and the curveball is real. And again, not your traditional left-handed breaking ball. This is a curveball with a lot of depth that can absolutely be a put-away pitch. When I say Alton Davis II, The one thing that pops into my mind besides his elite stuff is what was one of my favorite moments of the season last year. Game 2 against Alabama, LSU down 3 runs, and Hayden Travinski comes off the bench to pinch hit and turns around a 97-mile-per-hour fastball off the scoreboard for a 3-run homer to tie the game and ultimately swing the momentum in LSU's favor. They'd go on to kind of blow it open a little bit later on and win that ball game. But it's just, that's the kind of spot they trusted that kid in last year as a freshman. The same is true this year. That's one reason I bring it up also, just because I loved it. 4.94 ERA in 17 appearances. Again, that ticks up above 5 in conference play, but you're looking at 33 punch-outs in 27 and a third innings. And again, as we said, the fastball, it can get up to 97, 98. It's a really, really good pitch. Tyler Fay is a righty. That's who they've used the most out of the bullpen. Again, not overpowering. It's about it's like kind of like a straight up 3/4 delivery. High 80s, low 90 fastball, good slider, but 20 appearances. And the results have not been great. A 7.5 ERA, but they go to him. 5 guys with 15 or more appearances who they really tend to lean on. We mentioned already Myers. We mentioned Davis. Obviously Tyler Fay. And then Colson Buchanan and Aiden Moza. And the one thing I'll say about Aiden Moza, his stuff's good, but he's just really struggled this year. Fastball in the mid-90s and a filthy breaking ball. And it's a lot of breaking balls when you see him. Like, he will go up there and throw 4 straight breaking balls, no problem. But it's a really good pitch. Unfortunately, he's been hit. I mean, 35 more hits than innings pitched for a guy like Moza. But the stuff is good. So, like, if you see 23 come in, understand the stuff could show out a little bit there. All right. LSU. Obviously, the big matchup here is, can the pitching travel? That is the thing. We can talk timely hitting and all of that, and sure, 100% that's going to be a part of this. But LSU has to get good outings out of their pitching. And I think that they can, just because of how well they've pitched previously and because of the emergence of a guy like Christian Little. That has changed things. That has made this flow a lot easier for LSU. Do you remember a few weeks back, we talked about, I can't remember what series we were previewing, but we talked about LSU trying to steal a game without having to use Griffin Herring. Because at that point, Holman was game 1, and you were backing him up with Herring. You were Holman Herring, that great different look and whatnot, and it was successful for you. But game 2 was hard. Gage Jump would pitch well, and then after that, you didn't know what you were going to do. Game 2 has gotten easier for LSU now with the emergence of Christian Little over the course of his last, 4, 5, 6 outings now? That's given you a little bit of length. And then what you saw from Gavin Guidry against Northwestern State in the midweek. And not only that, him coming in 3 pitches and ending the Texas A&M game. All of that makes game number 2 easier for LSU. It doesn't mean they're going to win it, but the path to winning it is easier now. And that's important. And that's one reason I look at this and I go, okay, they've got options now. The pitching can travel. Justin Luer didn't have a great outing Sunday against A&M, but he was really good when you brought him in that matchup spot. He got the ground ball that you needed. You just didn't make the play. Is he more of your matchup lefty here down the back end? If so, that can make things easier. For LSU, the path is simple. You need to win the first 2 games. We talked about Ben Hess and his struggles on the mound, and he's going to throw game 3, and maybe that provides a better opportunity for you to slug a little bit in game 3 more than LSU has. But game 3 should not even enter your thought process until you wake up on Sunday morning and head to the ballpark. You take this one game at a time and you go all in to win one game at a time. Hopefully, Fidel Ulloa, the emergence of Fidel Ulloa, that's giving you a bridge to even get to Griffin Herring where you don't have to, extend him as much. You've got options. I think it can travel. The one thing I'll say about this LSU pitching staff, they are battle tested, y'all. Look at I don't want to put all their struggles on this because that wouldn't be fair because they just had struggles. They couldn't throw strikes. They had struggles. But look at the offenses that LSU's pitching staffs had to face this year. Florida, A&M, Tennessee, now this Alabama team. Auburn has a good lineup. Alabama's great offensively. I don't think they're as good as Tennessee, and I don't think they're as good as Texas A&M. You pitched really well against those two teams, one at home, one on the road. So, yeah, I think the pitching can travel, and I think that is the key. If LSU pitches well, I like them to be able to find some timely hits against Alabama's pitching staff. I like LSU's ability to do that here. The ballpark can play friendly to hitters from time to time. It's only 390 to center field. LSU's got plenty of pop in the lineup. The timely hit has started to show up. They've gained some confidence there. Tipping moments in the game, that'll obviously be key. That's been key the last few weeks, and LSU's won those. Can they continue to do that? That's going to be a major question. And then, of course, keep the leadoff guy off base, and don't give up 2-out hits and 2-out base runners and 2-out runs. Get off the field when you have the opportunity, especially against this team who puts the ball in play. Alabama's going to be very aggressive. Very, very aggressive at the plate. All right, prediction time. I like the Tigers. I do. And I would not have told you that 3 weeks ago. But the consistency that we've seen from them on the mound with guys emerging, I like. I think LSU can get 2 out of 3 this weekend. And I will tell you, another thing that encourages me for that is Ben Hess pitching on Sunday for Alabama. If they would have Zane Adams there, I would not feel nearly as confident. LSU's best path is to win the first 2, but with Hess going on Sunday, that gives LSU a shot in a game number 3. So I will take LSU 2 out of 3 this weekend against Alabama, and that is not something I would have predicted 3 weeks ago. In fact, I didn't predict it 3 weeks ago. I said they were going to lose the series 3 weeks ago. Now I'll take them to win. Y'all know we have y'all covered throughout the weekend here on Musso at the Box. Get ready for all the live reaction, everything of that nature. Looking forward to it. Hopefully we can have some fun just like we did last weekend. There's no wedding, but hopefully we can have some fun just like we did last weekend on those live streams. So y'all get subscribed, smash the like button, share, subscribe to the YouTube channel and on your favorite podcast app. Follow me on the social medias scrolling below, and I'll be here next time for more on Musso at the Box.